Good evening, ladies. I just thought I'd jump on really quickly, and I did start to explain in my live this morning, and I digressed. Explain the gut-brain axis. But I just thought I'd jump on tonight and just explain to you how the gut-brain axis influences our immune system and how it influences our gut health as well. Because this is something that I mean, for anybody who knows me and knows my original background, my original background is in nutrition. Now, because obviously I do the advanced stages of nutrition, my nutrition and my lifestyle is squeaky clean. Literally all my ducks are in a row. Yet I suffer with Crohn's disease. I also had I experienced a perforated bowel 2.5 years ago, and I also was diagnosed with a rare sarcoma in my leg 2.5 years ago also, which to the medical profession is unexplained. I've tested negative for the gene flaw. Sarcomas are generally, they're that rare, they're not caused by, I mean, a lot of cancers are as a result of poor diet and lifestyle choices. But this one is actually either deemed as a freak thing that has happened, or it is as a result of a gene flaw, which I've tested negative for. Now, there is no such thing as a freak thing that happens with our health at all. Now, bearing in mind, all my ducks I've been in a row in terms of my diet and lifestyle for a long time. Yet the only common denominator, which as I've gone through all my trainings, I trace back all my flares with my Crohn's to times where my back's been against the wall, where my internal negative belief system was at risk of being exposed. So what I'd learned is that my brain has associated illness as a means of protecting me. But not only that, the fact that I was in my sympathetic system so frequently explains why. And now that I do understand, I understand the gut-brain axis much more detail than what I did do before. Explains why the trauma that I was experiencing. So as soon as my abuse ramped up with my husband after I had my daughter, I don't know who's on, by the way, say hi. I experienced a flare around about month 8 after having Sophia. Now, what happens is when we are in a trauma response, okay, trauma is activated by our senses, okay, so it's encoded as a result of an event, and it's the emotion that is encoded. It's the emotion that's inescapable. But we have our brain takes snapshots of a past event, which I discussed in my earlier live this morning, and it's the senses that pick up around us quicker than our active brain can clock these messages, these signals, these alerts of a potential threat. Now, what these are vary greatly from person to person, okay? And it's only through a tracing back process that we can really pin down what these are and what actually needs working on a trauma perspective. But just to explain to you how the process works within the brain and between the brain and the gut. So let's say we are walking down the street, and our thalamus, which is a part in the limbic system in the brain, clocks something in our surroundings, whether that be something in sight, whether that be something in sound, whether that be something in smell, or even taste. And alert filters those messages to the active brain and to the amygdala, which is our fear center. Now, if that sense is part of that snapshot that's being taken at the time of an event, traumatic event and trauma encoding, that is when your amygdala will act accordingly, and it'll flood the body with cortisol. As soon as your amygdala is alerted of a threat, it then sends that signal, that message, to the vagus nerve, okay, which is at the base of the spine, sorry, the base of the skull, and that is a direct link from our brain to our gut, and it has lots of branches off to all our major organs, essentially, on our upper part of our body. So as soon as the vagus nerve has been alerted to this threat, that kicks in the sympathetic system. The vagus nerve then sends a signal to the gut to shut down. And the reason it does that is because when we are in a real dangerous situation, whoever's on, I have no idea who's on, by the way, so just say hi. When we are in a real dangerous situation, what happens is we are preparing to run, we are preparing to fight. And when we are in situations like that, if you liken it to a wild animal that's been chased by a predator, the last thing you want to be doing in a situation like that is breaking down and digesting food. So that's the reason why it shuts down the digestive system. So if we are not breaking down and digesting food as a result of us being in our sympathetic system, that means it results in inflammation occurring, because when the gut does switch back on again, when the digestive system switches back on again, it's got to work extra hard to try and break down this undigested food. When that happens, that also increases the acidity levels in the gut, and that does two things as well. It causes additional inflammation, and it also damages the gut flora in the gut. So there's lots of things there just with the gut alone. Now, the other thing that happens when the vagus nerve is alerted to a threat and the sympathetic system is activated, the vagus nerve also slows down our immune system, because what we want to do is what the body needs to do in a real dangerous situation is preserve energy. So it then reduces the amount of fuel to the immune system cells, and it also reduces the amount of fuel being delivered and supplied to the major organs. So those slow down as well. So those become, their functionality slows down, becomes less effective. But again, this is done as a means of, it's not meant to be a long-term thing. It's meant to be, it's designed to get you out of a jam. Again, let's go back to the the animal in the wild being chased by a predator. That's not a long-term situation. Now, this is the difference between an animal and the difference between us. An animal is able to process their trauma. They're able to process those events. If you were to ever watch a video of an animal in a situation like that, has been attacked by a predator, what happens is they play dead, and that's their body, their brain, the brain putting their body into a state that's called freeze. Okay. Now, freeze is where taken to the animal situation, the animal will play dead. Okay, and that is a survival technique. You know, there's people in situations where they've had maybe a break-in and they literally haven't woken up to it. Again, that's the brain kicking in to as a survival technique to save you, because if you woke up, that might put your life at risk. So the brain does these things as a main means of protecting you. Once the brain identifies that, oh, okay, the threat's away now, I need to process that trauma. With the animal will then shake. They'll shake uncontrollably. And we will have experienced situations like that where we have started to shake. But us as humans, we fight that process. So we never actually process our trauma. And because if the situation is deemed as inescapable, that is when it's stored and encoded as trauma, as a traumatic event. So can you see there why being in this state is so bad for our health? I mean, even in the situation, I mean, I'm not going to, this is not a getting into a debate about COVID vaccines or anything like that, or COVID itself. But bottom line is, to fight any virus and to produce any antibodies from what's put into our body from a vaccine, whatever the vaccine is, we need a responsive immune system. So if somebody's stressed as a result of fear-mongering, because of the virus generally, okay, or, you know, the situation that they're in because of their job situation or whatever it may be, okay, being in sympathetic system, can you see there where that connection is? Now, mental health has been massively on the decline since lockdown, and, you know, that is because things that people have been distracted from previously, by being in isolation, has opened up those wounds and shone a massive great big light on wounds that were already there and were maybe being self-soothed by having a glass of wine of an evening, or turning to the sugar, or whatever your vice is. It may have been masked by those things, because again, the brain doesn't really want you to feel those pain, feel that wound ever again, and it will drive you to what is going to take that away, what is going to keep you away from feeling that again. So because a lot of people have had wounds highlighted, it's brought a lot of things to the surface. So if they are in the sympathetic system to a greater extent, and they've dipped further down the ladder. So what I use this a lot in my coaching, is the polyvagal theory. Okay, so this is where we are at our calm state and more regulated. This is where we're in fight or flight, and this is where we are in a really low, we're in more freeze mode or fawn mode, and we are feeling low. We struggle to get motivated. We just want to hide under the duvet and not see and shut out the whole world. That is your typical depression state down at the bottom of the ladder. So when you are in fight, when you are down, when you are here and when you are here, you're well and truly in your sympathetic system, and that is going to impact your gut immediately. Now, when I had my last episode with my ex, and my trauma, and he triggered my trauma response, I felt it instantly in my gut. Instantly. I got a calprotectin done, and the calprotectin confirmed exactly what I suspected. So that is how quickly it happens. Now, I'm very in tune with my body, particularly because obviously I've got the education to back it up, so I am very aware of what goes on. But you know, these things happen all the time and you may not even be aware of it. So you know, that just gives you an idea as to how important it is. And in terms of your, you know, obviously I've told you how it slows down the immune response when you're in the sympathetic system. But if you are causing inflammation in your gut, the gut makes up 70% of our immune system. And if there's lots of inflammation there, that's damaging the healthy cells that make up our immune system. So again, that compromises the immune system even further. So, you know, can you see where it is absolutely vital to deal with your trauma, to manage your health generally? I mean, another thing that, you know, one of my who I've done my training with, Dr. Rudin, he's been doing some clinical studies with some neuroscientists, and they found the link between autoimmune disease and a chemical which is released through trauma activation, which is glutamate. And they believe it's the link between it's the glutamate toxicity that results in autoimmune disease occurring. Now, I spoke to him yesterday and he said they pretty much proved that, and they're just waiting for the studies to be published. But, you know, so that just shows how impactful stress is on our overall health and well-being. And the only way to resolve these things is to deal with that trauma. So it is absolutely vital. It is, you know, it's crucial to healing your whole body. You know, so if weight is a big problem for you, because I know some people did respond on the poll about you know, binge eating and weight issues and things like that. You know, it doesn't matter what, if you could be putting in the healthiest foods into your body, but if you are not breaking it down and digesting it, which means you're not absorbing that nutrition, it's not going to be very effective. You know, so there's lots and lots of elements there that rely on up here being resolved. So anyway, I'm not going to stay on all night. I just wanted to cover that for you. But I say I did just put a poll out in regards to doing a little exercise with you. So if you were interested in that, it's just a little resilience building exercise that I'm going to do on a live, and just seeing which times of day is better for people. So if you respond to that poll, and then I can have a look at my diary and see which is going to be best time to slot that in, and I can let you all know in as an event for that. So yeah, have a look at that poll, and I shall catch you all again shortly. Have a good evening, everybody. I'll speak to you later.